Now we come to programmable graphics. Now, till HTML4, if you wanted to do programmable graphics inside a web page, technically you could do that, but you had to use a plugin. You had to use something called Flash or Silverlight or any other plugin. But one of the key features of HTML5 once again is this small tag called the canvas tag, right? The canvas tag is enormously powerful, but it's something very, very simple. The canvas tag is nothing but, just like an IMG tag in which you can program the pixels using JavaScript. That's all it is. But the very fact that now you can do animations using JavaScript is huge, right? Previously you could not do that. You had to use some kind of plugin. But now you can actually do that. Now you can use JavaScript to program the pixels inside a predefined area inside a web page, right? And it's very, very powerful. So as you can see in this slide, it's not really that difficult to do. In the HTML file, in the HTML5 file, you do something called this. You have a canvas tag, you set the width and the height, and say the ID of that file of that tag as well. And in the JavaScript part, you get that, by doing document.getElementById. You do something called canvas.getContext. Get the 2D context of that particular element, and then there are various predefined functions that you can use. For example, fill rect, for example, or you can draw triangles or Bezier curves, and you can do a whole bunch of these things with Canvas. The result is that you can make really, really nice animations and really, really nice applications as well. There are plenty of examples on the web of what you can do with Canvas. I'll just show you one particular example of one of our developers who actually made this, which is a small game in less than around 200 lines of JavaScript code. So let me just show you this. Where is it? So this guy actually made something similar to Wolfenstein 3D using just 2D canvas in about 200, 300 lines of JavaScript code. That's it. It uses ray tracing and everything. And this is just a very small example of what you can do with the canvas tag. The tag itself is just a small thing. But what you can do with JavaScript using that tag is amazing. There are plenty of tutorials even on dev.opera.com that you can go ahead and learn and see what you can use Canvas for. How many people have gone to a web page, decided to make a web page and did something like div ID is equal to header, and div ID is equal to footer, and div ID is equal to nav or navigation or something? Instead of doing all of that, now in HTML5 what we've done is we've made sure that these very, very common use cases are handled by the actual browser. So instead of saying div ID is equal to header, you just say header. Div as such is just a division. So browsers or anything else, when they're trying to access that page, they don't really know the semantic meaning of what that tag represents. So for you as a web developer, it may not be that important, but for machines, for example, screen readers or search engine spiders, for them, the more they can analyze the meaning behind different tags, the better it will be for them. So these things later on will be very, very important for SEO and for making sure that things are accessible by screen readers, or these machines can make much more semantic sense of what's going on in the page, right? So let's just stop that. Okay. So where was I? Yes. So when it comes to these new tags, you have header, you have footer, you have nav for navigation, you have section to divide the page within different sections. If you're writing an article, then you have an article tag. You also have a time element, and there are a few other tags that you can take a look at. Just 1 second, maybe someone from TechGeek is calling me. Hello? Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little bit busy. Can you just call later on? After about an hour. Yeah, sorry for that. Anyways, so when I was talking about semantically important tags, what I actually meant was the fact that non-humans, screen readers or search engine spiders or later on anything else, which is trying to make sense of what's going on in the page, they will be helped by these tags. And you will also help because instead of writing div ID is equal to header, which doesn't make any kind of sense, now you'll be able to make much more sense of the page, which helps in code maintainability as well. One more thing that I was trying to talk about earlier was the fact that the doc type is much more simpler. How many people have just copy pasted a doc type? A whole lot of people actually do that. They just copy paste the doc type without even thinking what the doc type actually means and whether that particular doc type is appropriate for what they're writing in the code. So doc types have been a huge problem. They're insane, and they were really a broken thing to begin with, because many people just copy pasted it and they wrote like HTML but put in the XHTML doc type, and all kinds of, it was a whole mess. So doc types are something that we wanted to simplify in HTML5 as well. And that's why now if you wanted to have a doc type, all you need to do is just say, exclamation mark doc type HTML. That's it. If you have this at the top of your page, the browser will recognize that, yes, it's an HTML5 page. Sorry for that. There's some kind of, yeah. So doc types are also very, very important, because if you don't have this, then the browser may not know that you're writing an HTML5 page. In modern browsers, generally speaking, even if you omit this doc type, they'll treat it, using their error handling capabilities, and may recognize that maybe it's an HTML5 page. But it's always good to include a doc type specifically, saying that, okay, this is HTML5, rather than depending on the browser to figure it out. So this is very, very important. Apart from this, and this was the original intention of HTML5 actually. So when I was talking about HTML5 and how it began as Web Applications 1.0, there's a little story even behind that. Even before that, it actually started as something called Web Forms 2.0. That was the original specification that people were working on, and the intention behind that specification was to make sure that web forms are improved on the web. Then later on, that Web Forms 2.0 snowballed into Web Applications 1.0, because they began to think that, okay, if we're making improvements to web forms, we might as well make improvements to the whole HTML specification. So that, forms are central to what HTML5, the story of HTML5. And it's also one of the biggest improvements when it comes to HTML5. The problem is, till HTML4, if you wanted to do forms, it was a huge, huge pain, because if you make forms, you also have to do validation, right? And server-side validation always has to be done, but client-side validation is also very, very important. So that's also something to take a look at and learn. Let's see an example first. Let's see an example. Let's go to my web forms demo. Or what you can also do is just go online and search for web forms 2 demo. And the second or the first or second page will be my demo. This is something I made in 2008 early on, but it's still valid. The first thing that you'll notice over here in this page is the fact that autofocus is on the third formal input. No, it's not on the first. That's because I entered something called autofocus. Input type is equal to text autofocus. That's why it's already autofocusing over here. Now let's enter something over here and go over here at the edge. Automatically it starts at 18 and I can't do more than 25. That's because I said input type is equal to range, age, max is equal to 25, min is equal to 18. Now once again, if you wanted to verify an email address or something is an email address, you had to do a whole lot of stuff. You had to put in very, very complicated irregular expressions and a whole lot of stuff like that. But now inside the browser, what you need to do with HTML5 is just say input type is equal to email. That's it. So if you do that, and if it's not an email address, it'll say please enter a valid email address. So all of these small but very, very important form validation stuff is being done now by the browser. You don't need to enter your own JavaScript. Now if I click on this, what happens? You see this pops up? This can be used by the developer to put in their own search suggestions, for example, right? And this is something called data list. You can do that. Now, how many people have gone to, yatra.com or cleartrip.com and selected the date from over there, and a whole calendar pops up? Now, all of these things are done by JavaScript, and they're very, very complicated. Most people just take the script and put it in their own browser, or in their own pages. Now, with HTML5 web forms, what you can do is just say input type is equal to date, and that's it. No JavaScript, and you'll have this whole calendar pop up. And you can pick up, whichever date you want. One more thing is, you see the value of 0 over here. That's because it is part of an output tag. So you have an input tag, but in HTML5 you also have now an output tag, which gives you the output of the current range. So you can see over here. So all of these new cool stuff is now available in HTML5 web forms, which is very, very nice. Let's see how it's done in detail. So remember that we went, and said, okay, it cannot go more than 25 and less than 18. It's done using this, the first thing. Input name is equal to age, type is equal to number, and min is equal to 18, max is equal to 25. Very easy to learn. And that will tell the browser to just have values, just accept values, which is between the ranges of 18 and 25, right? And I was telling you about email validation. So all you need to do is just say input type is equal to email, type is equal to email, required. So that required keyword will make sure that that thing will be required by the form. Otherwise, it will not be submitted. Let's go down over here. So it says input name is equal to something, date, type is equal to date. Now this, if you say type is equal to date, that whole calendar thing will pop up, right? And it'll make sure that it's a much more user-friendly experience than asking the user to enter a date in some weird Unix format, and doing the date processing yourself. Instead of that, just the browser will, pop up a whole calendar and the user can pick up any kind of date from that. So if you want to learn more about web forms, just search for Web Forms 2 demo, and over there's a link to my article on Web Forms 2 as well. And it goes over here on my blog where you can learn more about Web Forms 2. So let's go back. Now this was just about the HTML specification, but this talk was about HTML5 and friends, which means that it's much more than just the HTML5 specification.